Hi there. This is a quick update on the status of the ongoing Game of Thrones spin-off series that are in development, specifically the animated projects that they've mentioned. This is part of a longer report I was making on the big cover story that House of the Dragon had in The Hollywood Reporter last week, where they didn't just talk about House of the Dragon, they talked about all the other potential prequels that are in development. So, beyond House of the Dragon, there are a couple of other, currently 4 different live-action things that are pitches and pilot scripts in various stages of development. But we've known for a couple of months about, they said we're doing 3 animated projects. So I wanted to split this video off and make a short 2-minute thing because it's really focused. That we got 2 small new pieces of information in this about what are you doing on the animation front? Because they want to make this the World of Westeros cinematic universe, and like Star Wars or Marvel, they have a mix of live action and animated projects. They said, well, we heard it as rumors in early 2021, and then like a year later, Martin confirmed it in his blog. He said, yes, there are 3 animated projects, because this already came out as a leak, I'll just confirm. There are 3, and yes, one of them is about Yi Ti. It's called The Golden Empire. Yi Ti is their fantasy version of Imperial China. And if you get The World of Ice and Fire, there's this whole large chapter on it. It spans thousands of years of history. It's the only continuous civilization that has survived since the Long Night. So that's like 8,000 years of continuous history, that they're this really advanced civilization. They have all these sorcerers and warrior generals and emperors who live in palace the size of King's Landing. A lot of stuff you could do there. I'm not sure specifically what story they're doing in it, or if it's like an anthology. But that's a place you'd like to explore. We don't know what the other 2 are. I suspect if one is Yi Ti, another one is the Summer Isles. That's what Westeros.org also thought, that if you're going to do spin-offs outside of Westeros, the top ones would be Yi Ti, the Summer Isles. The Summer Isles are like a cross between Africa and Indonesia, because it's like an island chain the size of Indonesia. It's more of a region than an island chain. And there's 3 big islands, and there's all these princely states that they're this great maritime power, that they have all these big trade fleets, and they're sailors, explorers, and sea merchants. And it would be, there's a narrative there. There's the story of Xanda Quo, the warrior queen who united the islands in the distant past and all that. So they could play around with that as an animated project. If I had to guess what the third one would be, and I've said all this, I think it might be a better version of those histories and lore featurettes that they would always put out with the Blu-rays, which were really great. They were wonderful designs, but they were motion comics. Really, really good motion comics narrated by the live-action cast in character, but they were still motion comics. We want something that's, higher quality than that now that they're really expanding. Well, we learned 2 short things in just one paragraph in this new set of interviews. First, Martin actually described the quality level in any level. It was just one sentence where he said, the quality of animation on this, and in terms of the animated styles, the variety they're doing, and the quality level, it says Martin compared them to Netflix's critically acclaimed Love, Death, and Robots. So we're not dealing with like motion comic level stuff. He says this is stuff that will compete with top level animation coming out of Netflix or Disney Plus. This is something that could compete alongside Love, Death, and Robots, which is itself an anthology series mixing different styles. So I'm just showing screenshots here. That's the quality level we're talking about when they say animation. Don't think the old histories and lore motion comics, which we really like. Think a new version of the history and lore motion comics that are like fully animated. High quality stuff. These are things that'll be competing for Annie Awards, I think, or at least trying to, like animated Emmys and stuff, competing against the Zeus Olympus thing Netflix also puts out. I don't know if you could compete against, a narrative like Amazon's Invincible adaptation, because that's a whole separate. This is a supplement, but maybe it isn't a supplement. Maybe it's an animated project. So, more like what Star Wars and Marvel are doing. Like, What If? I didn't consider a supplement. I thought What If was... I'd have paid more money to see that than the problems behind the scenes in Doctor Strange 2. What If was like a movie unto itself. So that's the first thing, that Martin has compared the quality level to Netflix's Love, Death, and Robots. They're not skimping on it. These are really high quality. The second point, and this is the first we have ever heard of this, the Hollywood Reporter article phrases it as, beyond the live action stuff, quote, there are also 3 animated projects, possibly 4, in the works. This is the first we've heard that they're starting to develop a 4th one. We'll see how that goes. So, I don't know what animation studios could be working on this. Do you guys know? They're probably going to use something DC Comics may have used in the past, because, they have the same parent company, DC Comics and HBO. They're both Warner Discovery things. So maybe they would use a DC Comics animation studio that has worked on other tie-in projects for other things. But there's a couple there, so that'd be hard to guess. People smarter than me about reporting on animation news, please check. There's ways people figure this out by checking who's hiring up a lot of animators. You can kind of suss out they might be doing something for this. Then again, people might assume it's for a DC thing and not realize, no, they're working on these other things. I think we'll see the animated projects before we see live action things, because you have to cast that up, you have to build sets. Quality animation takes a long time, but, it's not as limited by exterior filming during a pandemic that's winding down and all the cast members getting sick and other things. So I think they're more likely to greenlight those first. I think it's entirely possible that they have this new, better version of the old histories and lore, like a really animated one, that they're going to put out with a Blu-ray in spring, and they just haven't told us about it yet. That's what I would do. Another possibility I'm going to leave you with, because they said, well, we had 3, now we have 4. I'm going to mention this again, but thinking of how many seasons the Dance of the Dragons show, House of the Dragon, could run, and how tight of a narrative they could have, I'm wondering if they're going to do this sort of like the way that Star Wars would handle the Clone Wars, which was both done in live action with the main characters, and then they'd have various cartoons showing different fronts of the war, because it was a galaxy-wide event. That I'm starting to wonder, are they going to do a cinematic universe style thing, where instead of trying to make a giant Dance of the Dragons, the entire Targaryen Civil War, about every front in it, because it's not just the fighting around the east, around King's Landing and Dragonstone. They mentioned that, oh yeah, off-screen in the western front of the war, the Lannister and Stark armies fought the largest land battle. It was like Antietam, because it was a slaughter. Like, technically the Stark side won, but it was a Pyrrhic victory. They fought to the point of exhaustion. They call it the fish feed, because they fought on the shore of a big lake, and it was a bloodbath. It was just the piles of bodies. The battle by the lake shore was the biggest land battle of the war, and it almost happens off screen in the book because their focus is on the Targaryens. And they mention that it happens. I'm wondering, is the TV show, we all assumed it would, expand as it went out, that they would expand to show what Cregan Stark is doing, what Joanna Lannister is doing. What if the live-action show is focused on the Targaryens, and they make like a Star Wars, the Clone Wars style thing, showing other fronts, the other campaigns in the war, as like a tie-in, high-quality animated project, showing the Riverlands campaign, showing the Lannister army breaking through at Red Fork, showing harassment operations as they use scorched earth tactics and ambushes, and armies positioning, and then climaxing with the battle by the lakeshore. I could see them doing that. That is a valid way to do something. I'd rather they did it in live action, but given the scale involved, could they be making other tie-in projects that aren't just something about the Summer Isles or something about Yeeti, but like direct tie-ins to the Dance of the Dragons that happen concurrently? The only other thing I can think of is, I really wish the Telltale game had actually gotten more love, because it was really the first and only attempt so far to make a good Game of Thrones Westeros video game, and I reported on it when it happened, and then Telltale shut down, but effort went into that, even though it isn't really full canon. But they hired 6 of the top cast members to voice it. You had Dinklage, Clark, you had Harrington, you had Cersei, you had Marjorie in it. And they were trying to develop side stories of this is how the war is proceeding at a local level between Stark vassals. One sides with the Starks, one betrays them for the Boltons and the Lannisters. Like, that was an early attempt at doing a tie-in show cinematic universe, even though the TV show didn't even try to reference it. What if they actually, the new attempt by Warner Discovery to make a cinematic universe, what if they try to do, or they could even ask Telltale again, that's another thing, they could try to make another video game just in a different time period of fighting a different front of the Dance of the Dragons. It could even be, you know, like Telltale doing the Foresters and Whitehalls. They do mention, like, all of Westeros was divided, that some vassals in every kingdom sided with the other group, even though most of the North sides with Rhaenyra, most of the Riverland sides with her, most of the Stormland sides with Aegon the Second. Maybe they could pick, like, a local level thing, or they could show the Ironborn War on the West Coast with the Lannisters. The big thing I'm thinking of is the Stark-Lannister War in the Riverlands during the dance, which I'm starting to wonder if will they build up the Starks, the Blackwoods, the Lannisters, the Marbrands as much as we thought they were. Because they said, you know, maybe 4 or 5 seasons. This won't be a 7-season show. Maybe they're going to handle that with other concurrently running animated projects. So when they say, well, there's 3, but we're starting to think of a 4th one, but these aren't motion comics. These are top-tier Love, Death, and Robots Netflix-level animated tie-ins. You know, on the level of Star Wars tie-ins, which some of which are very, very good. I mean, there's a huge fandom for Star Wars: The Clone Wars, so would we be okay with having not the entire war told in House of the Dragon, but having tie-in projects, provided that they interweave with them well, that they refer to them in the live-action show, and have cast members cameo in the cartoon, you know, like have Matt Smith briefly appear as Daemon when he wanders into that storyline when it overlaps. At first I was upset, but now I'm like, it's better than not having it at all. That we would like to have a 7-season live-action Clone Wars TV series, but with the limitations of it, I can see doing an animated thing. But for animation fans out there, and I know that's a whole sub-fandom unto itself, keep an eye on this. These aren't just, oh, it's a motion comic tie-in. They are really trying to get their foot in the door in the animated realm, because Disney stuff, even Netflix, they have so many animated projects that, in terms of adult animation, HBO Max, they have the Cartoon Network stuff, but they're lagging behind compared to the stuff that's really pushing the boundaries in terms of drama at the other major streamers. So, your thoughts on this in the comments. Keep an eye on this, that there is motion happening with the animated projects.